Retail workers, what's the dumbest thing you've had to explain to a customer? I work in a deli. We've gotten some doozies. What flavor are the plain breaded wings? Chicken, from my wife. My personal favorite that happened to me, when as such. Customer. Hi, I'd like some sliced chicken lunch meat. What you got? Me. We carry oven roasted buffalo and garlic and herb. Customer. You're not understanding me, boy? I want sliced chicken lunch meat. Now what you got? Me. Oven roasted buffalo or garlic and herb. Customer. You're still not getting me, son. I want sliced chicken lunch meat. Now tell me what you have, damn it. Me. Oven roasted chicken lunch meat, buffalo chicken lunch meat, garlic and herb chicken lunch meat. Customer. Oh, give me some bologna. Still don't know how I didn't get in trouble for sassing that ducker. Story 2. I didn't make your drink wrong, Amy. You ordered a large hot drink, and immediately after paying the barista, put out a small cold drink and yelled, Jennifer! Then, Amy, you picked it up and took a sip before realizing it was not your large hot drink. Shift lead sent me on break before I had a chance to fully explode. Story 3. A chicken is an animal, therefore it's not vegetarian. Worked in a vitamin store in college and was explaining to someone that vitamin D is extracted from lanolin in sheep's wool. So it depended on if you were vegan or not. And they hit me with fish and birds are not animals. The specific thing she said, what about a chicken? It's not an animal, it's a fowl. My assistant manager told her something like, oh, well, remember the 20 questions game? Is it animal, mineral, or vegetable? A chicken isn't an mineral or vegetable. They left in a huff and made huge complaints about us. Me in particular, because I couldn't believe how stupid they were. And I have no poker face. I was not cut out for retail. Story 4. I spent 20+ minutes arguing with a middle-aged woman trying to return an XXL stack of men's underwear. Against policy once opened. I explained that if her husband had a 32-inch waist like me, she needed to buy him medium-size underwear. She eventually and angrily shouted, look, he's got a huge D and he needs XXL pants for it, but these keep falling down when he wears them. She would not accept my explanation that the tag size related to his waist, not his junk. She raged out of the shop, leaving the stack of pants behind. Story 5. Phone call when I worked in a hardware store. Good morning, how can I help you? Hi there, I'd like to refill my prescription. Oh, I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong number. This is a hardware store. 5-second pause and so you won't help me refill my prescription? What sort of prescription? My birth control pill? Okay, well, we're a hardware store, so we don't have birth control or any other medication. You're not being very helpful at all. And then she hung up. I might have done society a disservice by not helping prevent her from procreating, come to think about it. Story 6. Back in the day, I worked at Safeway and a woman walked up to my meat counter and started asking me where a specific sale item was, like $1 a pound chicken or something. I tell her that's not sale we have, and she starts screaming, you people always do this. You bait and you switch. You advertise one thing and then refuse to honor the price. Every single time I come here and I'm sick of it. She then shoves the store ad in my face and aggressively points at the $1 a pound chicken on sale. Ma'am, this is Safeway. That's a Kroger ad. She looks at it and says, oh, oops, and walks out as I stand there just freaking baffled at what just happened. Also, working meat department every Thanksgiving morning. I would have to explain to at least 5 people that you cannot thaw and cook a 20-pound turkey by this evening. Story 7. I used to run a feed store in an affluent area. We sold baby chicks, which were only females, for egg laying. This guy comes in and is adamant about needing a rooster for more egg production. That's not the case. I explained how the reproductive egg-laying process was. He just wasn't getting it. I was at my point, and plus, the fact I couldn't order just one rooster. I could only order roosters in a batch of 50. I had to put it extremely bluntly to him, and I asked him, Sir, does your wife need you around every month to get her period? His jaw drops and says, oh my, how foolish could I be? Another customer asking, where's the mother chicken? Me. They don't need the mother hen. Her. How can they survive without their mother? You buy chicken breast at the store. She needs to breastfeed. Me. That's not how it works. Story 8. That watermelons don't grow on trees. And this was back in the days before these personal-sized, seedless watermelons, back when they were like 20 pounds. A woman was complaining that all of the watermelons were flat on one side and kind of yellow. I told her that was the side that was on the ground. She looked angry and surprised and asked, what do you mean on the ground? Like I was admitting to some secret that we leave the producing sitting on the ground out back or something. Story 9. As a cashier, when someone is paying cash, hey, if you can give me a penny or a nickel, I can give you a whole paper dollar back as change. If your total was $19.10 and you gave me a $20, give me $20.10, and I can give you a dollar bill for change rather than you carrying pesky spare change around. This was back in the late 90s or early 00s. I know this confused people back then. It would totally explode someone's brain now. Story 10. This is sort of the opposite of what you are asking, but I once tried to buy some model rocket engines from a big box retailer. The cashier was prompted to ask if I was 15 years old. I answered that I was, in fact, 27 years old. The cashier said, "I'm sorry, I can't sell these to you unless you are 15. I asked to speak to a supervisor and we got things straightened out." Story 11. I actually have one for this. Worked in car parking customer service for a few years. Had to explain to a lady why she was being charged for an hour and a half instead of letting her out for free under the half-an-hour free rate when her vehicle had been in the car parked for an hour and a half. Her reasoning: "I only intended to stay 20 minutes. My system shows me you were here for an hour and a half. Yes, but I only intended to be here for 20 minutes. But you were actually here for an hour and a half." Ended up having to explain over 5 minutes how rates work and how you get charged for the time in the park. Wild. Story 12. Former retail worker. The store I worked at through college would do a friends and family event twice a year. If you had a membership or received one of the discount cards, you received 30% off your entire purchase. The receipt showed the breakdown over each item for the discount. There was one woman who would come in every time trying to return one item and would argue with our staff about why she wasn't getting what she paid for it. We'd point to the item and the amount subtracted to it from the discount, and she wasn't having it. Insisted on asking for a manager every time and causing a huge scene. She could never get it through her head that she didn't pay full price for the item. It happened so often that staff would sigh when she'd come into the store because we knew she was going to pull the same stunt. It was exhausting. Story 13. Back in high school, I worked in Kaufland. It's an European, German I think, but this happened in Slovakia, chain of stores. Think kind of like Walmart or Target. I worked at the butcher's there, mostly at ham salami, but every once in a while I'd have to help at the meat or cheese. This was that time. A coworker had to leave early, so I worked at the cheese department that day. Important info. The day before, there was a segment in the news about how Slovak cheese isn't being made from milk from Slovak cows anymore, and Slovak cheese factories get milk from cheaper countries. Anyway, I was working at cheese. Everything was fine, but I had that news thing at the back of my head, kind of like, there's no way someone will ask about it, right? And then it happened. 2 oldish people, boomer-aged probably came, and the lady pointed at a cheese and asked, "Where is the milk for the cheese for?" And I say, "We don't get that information." But the cheese itself was delivered from the Netherlands. And both of them go on this tirade about how nothing is being made in Slovakia anymore and European Union is ruining everything and everything was better during Soviet times. And I'm just staring at them like, are you serious? Because the cheese they were complaining about was Leerdammer. Leerdammer, the Dutch cheese. Leerdammer, the Dutch cheese from the Netherlands, which is probably why it was delivered from the Netherlands. I swear to God, I was explaining to them why a Dutch cheese has no reason to be made from Slovak milk for like 20 majuts. They even called my manager, and he was explaining it too. Both of us completely baffled. Story 14 had an older, though not senior citizen man, who was 100% certain that we're stealing money from his bank account because it kept showing $100 charges to the ATM at our location. After a series of questions, he stated he sends his son in to pick up his prescriptions and gives him his debit to pay, pointing out to him, from his own bank statement, that the $100 charges match the dates of the prescription pickups, made him only more emphatic that someone from the store was using his card to steal his money. Even pointing out that his bank statement specified the $100 as coming from an ATM did nothing to sway his mind. He stood at the front door, staring at us for 20 minutes before finally leaving. "Sorry, dude, your kid's a D and you're an idiot. I can't fix either of those." Story 15. I worked at Lowe's Home Improvement for a long while. I have a few stories. 1. My favorite is this older man was looking at the fluorescent light bulbs for a really long time. I was starting to get worried about him. I asked if he was okay, and he looked at me with a befuddled expression. "I want to buy these light bulbs because they have the brightness I need, but it says here on the front daylight, and I would be mostly using these at night. Do you have any like this that can be used at night? Daylight is just the brightness and tone of the light being emitted." 2. This adorable older couple came in while I was working in appliances to purchase a slow cooker. They had saved up to make this $30 buy, and they were really excited about it. I was telling them about all the wonderful things I have made in mine and how easy it is to use. They made their purchase and came back about an hour later. Them: "It doesn't work right." Me: "Did it not heat up? It can take a while to get up to temp if you have it really full." Them: "I put the chicken in, turned it on, and when we ate it 20 minutes later, it clearly wasn't cooked. My wife says she isn't feeling well now. Lord help me." 3. A husband and wife came in to buy some molding and lumber, and I was their cashier. The husband was screaming at the wife and blaming her for things that clearly weren't her fault. Just a truly horrible man. She looked completely embarrassed and defeated. I felt so bad for her, it was awful. They came up to the register and he yelled at her for forgetting an item. He screamed at her to stay at the register because she was too stupid and would probably get lost. I mean, he went off on her like crazy. She was standing next to me holding the car keys, almost crying. I looked at her and said I personally wouldn't wait for a ducker like that. She gave me a short chuckle and spun on her heel and walked out, got in the car and peeled out. I think of her often and hope she got the hell out that night. Story 16. During COVID, some high stolen items were locked up, and for some reason, the sales floor manager gave me. The pharmacy technician lead keys to said merchandise. A customer refused to let me touch the merchandise because of germs, even though I was the one who stocked it less than 5 minutes earlier. When I explained that I touched everything in that case already, she yelled at me for being gross and walked off without the product. I went back to the pharmacy and continued with my life without the product being stolen. Story 17. Working at a big box hardware store in the outside lumberyard. Guy buys an entire pallet of patio pavers and says he's going to go pay and he'll be back with his truck and asks, "Can I load up the entire pallet with my forklift so we don't have to stack them all?" Sure, we do this regularly, especially onto trailers. My guy then pulls around in an old ragged S10 and no trailer. I adamantly refuse to load them and tell him he's going to have to make a few trips because this is far heavier than his truck can haul safely. He continues to argue with me and asks for the store manager. Store manager comes and tells him the exact same thing I did. Finally, customer states he will sign a waiver of liability in case any damages occur to his truck because he just knows my truck can handle this. Store manager disappears for a bit and shows up with a waiver that I'm 99% sure he just typed up on the spot because I had never seen one before in years of working this job. Customer signs it and I get to it. As I'm lowering the pallet and more weight is put on the truck, I can clearly see that I was right and keep trying to convince the customer, but he continues to insist, so I carry on. I finish lowering the pallet and now all the weight is on the truck and I can clearly see his rear axle is bowing from the weight and point that out to him. Of course, he's got it. He then pulls off and exits the lumberyard. Not 30 seconds later, I get a call from the guard shack. That truck's axle just snapped. I find the store manager and excitedly tell him we were right. Store manager just smiles. Customer rages into the store and up to the customer service desk where my manager and I eagerly await. He gets loud and is screaming and pissed because we destroyed his truck. Manager just smiles at him, holds up the signed waiver and explains to him that he took all responsibility for his decision when he signed that line. It was a poetic moment. Story 18. If you enter your PIN in wrong 5 times for an ET card, it will lock up and you'll have to call the number on the back to get it unlocked. This isn't something the cashier does, or the store. It's the card's way of protecting itself, I guess. The amount of people who would scream at me, insult my intelligence, swear at me, and call me names, all because they locked their card up, was insane. And there wasn't anything I could do but void the order or let them pay with another form of payment. Sometimes I warned them after 2 or 3 tries, but that seemed to make them angrier when it happened. Duck the public, man. People are so rude and hateful nowadays. Story 19. When I briefly worked at Walmart, I worked in the back. I was on the floor walking through from completing a task when a woman stopped me and asked where tension rods were. Walmart policy at the time was you had to take the customer to what they were looking for. You weren't just allowed to say aisle 3 inches or point. You had to actually guide them right to it. So I told the woman where they are and told her I would walk her to them. We arrived at the aisle and I pointed to the display and let her know those were all the tension rods we have and if she is looking for anything else. She said no, so I left to go back to my duties. 10 minutes later, I was called to the floor. A section manager was with the woman who looked super pissed off and she was yelling at the guy. When I show, she screams, "That's the man right there!" I have no idea what is going on, even though no one was actually talking to me and this absolute Karen was screaming at both of us. I managed to figure out what she wanted wasn't tension rods, even though that is what she asked for directly. And when I brought her to the tension rods, she said she didn't need me anymore. According to her, I dragged her around the entire store for fun, just to abandon her in a random aisle and disappear. I still have no idea what she was actually looking for. After the lady left, my boss came around and was asking the section manager what was going on because they were reprimanding me pretty bad. We all went in the back and watched the video. And you clearly see the woman stop me, ask a question. I guide her a few aisles over, wait with her a minute, and we obviously agree, and I'm dismissed. No sound, but the body language and interaction was pretty obvious. The woman then proceeds to look at a few tension rods, gets really pissed off, and actually knocks over an entire display of them before storming off and finding the section manager. That was when I decided I would no longer work customer-facing jobs, and I haven't since. Story 20. I've not worked retail in a long time, but the few that stick with me. First, I never judge it for being assholes because selling electronics, I had more than one call from a customer who bought a new computer and was calling because it would not turn on, and I asked them if it was plugged in, and of course they always say yes, at varying levels of vulvae. But I learned the best thing to do was ignore them and tell them to physically pull plug and plug it back in, because then I know they actually checked. And every single ducking time, they either discover, oh, I guess it isn't plugged in, or the especially vulvae ones from the previous question usually just hung up. Oh, and it was a long time ago, as I said. So, big screen TVS were those massive rear projection TVS, and it was in the final days of them, so they were fairly cheap. As many times as I sold one to some stupid duck and get out to their car, not truck, not van, but ducking car, I got the point. I just asked what they were driving and shut the sale down immediately and told them they would need something bigger. My favorite was not even a TV. It was one of those big stereos from the early 00S that had the receiver, 2 speakers, and a subwoofer. The boxes were 3 feet tall and deep, and then like 4+ feet long. Guy buys one, asks for help to his car, and he had a ducking Geo Metro, a car, so ducking small, he could not fit the ducking stereo in his car, for duck's sake. He had to unbox it and split it between the passenger seat and back seat. I'm sure there are plenty of other really stupid ones I've forgotten over the years, but these ones stick with me. Story 21. When I used to work as a barista, I once had to work without any water. A construction worker accidentally burst a pipe and caused a geyser in a parking lot, so the water for the whole neighborhood had to be shut down. I was told to stay at work and sell the bottled drinks, snacks, frozen cappuccino, and drip coffee that was made right before the accident. So many people did not understand when I told them I couldn't prepare any fresh made-to-order beverages because we need water to make them. No espresso machine. No water for tea or anything. Even after explaining what had happened and what I had available, they'd say stuff like, "Get me a large mocha." I'm very sorry, but as I mentioned, without water, I unfortunately cannot use the espresso machine. Would you be interested in a drip coffee? I have several flavors, including chocolate. Prawn motions towards what's available, prawn. Ugh! In that case, give me a vanilla latte. I'm really sorry, but that also requires the espresso machine. I cannot make you one right now. I understand. Prawn. Duck. Then get me an Americano misto. I cannot. I'm really sorry. Please understand that I would make your drink of choice if I could, but the whole mall is out of water right now, and we're doing the best we can until it comes back on. Until then, my selection is very limited. We have bottled drinks, drip coffee, frozen caps, and snacks. Everything else requires water, which is temporarily shut off due to the accident earlier today. Fine! Just give me a medium mocha then? Glares at me, scoffs in disgust, stomps feet, and rolls eyes. Every customer interaction was basically like this for about an hour until the boss felt bad for me and let me go home. Story 22. Back when printers at home were rare, I had a woman come into my store asking for t-shirt transfer paper. I explained to her multiple times how to use them. Print on the paper, then pin to shirt, then iron. 30 minutes later, she came back with the printer and paper wanting a refund because the shirt got stuck in the printer. Story 23. Shelf of Milk-Bone Bear, offering a clear view of a completely empty cooler. Are you out of milk? I have no idea how I kept my job that day with all the smart-ass responses I gave. Also, a woman cursed me out on the phone because we didn't have a product. I explained that we have not carried that product in over a year. She exclaimed she has one in her fridge she bought last week and asked if I was calling he a liar. No, mama, but I am the dairy lead, and that product, when we got it, came in with a 3-week shelf life and we haven't received any for over a year. So, if you bought it last week, I would recommend you bring it back for a refund because it is far out of date. Story 24. I wasn't in retail, and I wasn't handling the call. This is one of the strangest things I've heard in relation to a customer, though. I was working inbound telephone customer service for life insurance back in the late 90s. One of the things we handled were payments for those policies. We offered quarterly payments. One day, we heard a coworker of mine getting louder and more intense with a customer. It went on for far too long. The customer was adamant that he was not late on payments. I can't remember the exact dates, but let's say the call was being taken in April 97. Payments were past due for at least 6 months. So OC 96 was not paid. Customer insisted that they were calling from April 96. Absolutely sure of this fact. Accused my coworker of living in the future and that the company was trying to rip him off. This was back before tablets and smartphones. Not everyone had a personal computer. My coworker was just at a loss for how to convince the caller that the current year was 1997. We all came up with ideas after the call, but in the moment, he was just befuddled, which I can understand. Caller ended up ending the call, still convinced that we were wrong. Story 25. I worked as a lifeguard in a pool leisure center. My favorites have been, the height requirement for the slide still applies even if you only want to go down once. The pool rules still apply to you even if you're older than the lifeguard. You can't swim in the pool with a large open cut on your leg. He refused medical treatment and stormed off. We had a rule against throwing kids into the air, which may seem overkill until you actually work in a pool and see how stupid people are. One time, a guy threw his .45 Yosun quite high in the deep end, and as the kid landed, one of his armbands came of, and he struggled to keep his head up with just one. As the guy was holding his kid in one hand and the armband dot in the other, I approached him and politely explained the rule. To which he responded, "But he's wearing armbands." One guy was flabbergasted when I wouldn't let him stay just 5 minutes after closing time, and was offended when he asked why not, and I told him the staff had to go home. There was a 16-plus age limit on the sauna. One kid was shocked that I didn't believe he was 16. I didn't believe him because I had kicked him out twice already, before it occurred to him to tell me he was 16. We hosted swimming lessons daily at a set time, which took over a set portion of the pool. One old lady would come 10 minutes before lessons, same day every week, enter the same lane, and would consistently be shocked when we asked her to move over a few lanes because lessons were starting now. Story 26. Customer. What's the difference between the 17-inch monitor and the 19-inch monitor? Me. 2 inches and $40. Customer. But what's the difference? Me. This one is bigger by 2 inches, measured diagonally, and more expensive by $40. Customer. No, but what's the prawn difference? Prawn. This went on for several minutes. He left without making a purchase. Story 27. I used to work in a high-end liquor store that had a massive wine section, and one day a lady came into the store and asked me where our Gruyere wine was. I did not know how to respond, so I asked her some questions like, was she looking for a specific type or brand, like a Chardonnay or a Cabernet, Pinot Grigio, Mad Dog, Ripple? Ma'am, unless the label says it is made from some other kind of fruit, this is all Gruyere wine. But she just kept repeating that she wanted Gruyere wine and got so mad at me and frustrated that I just did the motioning across entire aisles movement and walked away. She wandered the aisles and finally found what she was after. Mogan David. Mogan David Concord was what she wanted. Story 28. A worked at a tech store. Older woman, 60s, comes in, dressed in nice clothing and a beautiful long jacket. Hair and nails were done up. Seemed to have a sort of I'm better than you mindset and wanted to flaunt it with her looks. She furious that the iPad she bought 3 months ago at Christmas was worthless and didn't work and demanded a refund. I asked her what was wrong with it, and she said it worked fine for a while. And then one morning it just wouldn't turn on. Tapping the screen, pressing the buttons, none of it worked at all. I grab one of our chargers out of the drawer and plug it into her iPad. It instantly starts charging, and I have it on within a couple of minutes. She looks at me flabbergasted, asking what I did to make it work. She didn't know she had to plug it in or charge it, despite the charger and plug being out of the packaging. The worst thing is, she had a cell phone. How does she not know it had to be charged? I had to explain to this girl how batteries work like she was 5. She was looking at other customers nearby like, wow, this is crazy, did you know this? Meanwhile, the other customers are laughing behind her back with us. I just cannot believe people so ignorant are willing to act like they are so much better than everyone else. Although I suppose ignorance is exactly why they act that way in the first place. Story 29. Working at Starbucks. A customer asked what's in a latte. I took a cup and indicated the ratio of espresso to milk and foam. She said that's a lot of milk. Could she have a latte but a little less milky? I offered to add extra espresso shots. She didn't want more coffee, it would be too strong. I offered to do a filter coffee with some steamed milk. Still coffee with milk, but different ratio, so less milk in the cup. She didn't want filter coffee, but proper coffee, aka espresso. I offered pulling a long shot of espresso, letting more water run through the espresso machine. She didn't want it watered down. I offered to not fill the cup up all the way. She wanted a full cup. I was at my wit's end and asked her how she thought the drink should be composed, and I'll make it that way. She said she just wanted it less milky. I told her we have espresso, long espresso shots, hot water, and several kinds of milk to work with. What should go into the drink? She had no answer and was baffled. I didn't understand her simple request. She stormed off. It's been 10 plus years, and this still haunts me because to this day I haven't cracked her riddle. Story 30. I worked at a grocery store in college. The local warehouse workers went on strike, meaning we were getting no product in, and our shelves were getting more and more bare. After getting yelled at by customers for a week for being out of stuff, I finally had it one night. This lady was berating me because we didn't have any chicken breast in the case. I said, look, there's nothing I can do about it. The warehouse is on strike, and until it's resolved and they start delivering food again, I can't help you. She started screaming at me even more, saying how dare I blame the warehouse. Her husband works there, and if they would pay him a decent wage, he wouldn't strike. Blah, blah, blah. She immediately complained to the manager, and I got written up. Like, tell your husband to go back to work if you need your family packed chicken so bad? I was the person with the least to do with situation here, yet she got me written up for it. Story 31. I think explaining store policy was dumber than anything. Yes, sir. I can see you are struggling to bag your own groceries because you are unwell, unsteady, elderly, overwhelmed, tired. Pick anyone. But I'm not supposed to bag them for you. And if I do stop long enough to help you, I will be told again that bagging groceries is not my job, and I will be written up for it. Again, my job is to ring groceries through. Even if it means that now 2 people are trying to bag their groceries in an area with only enough room for maybe 1 person to bag their groceries. No, Mom! I cannot give you a bag, you have to pay for it. Yes, you do have to pay for it, even if it means you have to put a 0.99 charge on your CR. Card. Yes, the store is making record profits and you just spent 300.00 on groceries and you're just one bag short, but I still can't give you a bag. And if I do, I will be written up for doing so. Again, story 32. Not my story, but one from a friend of mine. He's an upholsterer. In his early career, he worked for a well-known national furniture chain as a service upholsterer, visiting customers who had faults with their purchases or who had damaged their furniture but had taken out the insurance. This one customer was complaining about a mark on her leather sofa, and he told her it was a scar in the hide, and it was normal and not something he could fix. What do you mean, scar? Well, it's probably from the cow rubbing against barbed wire at some point, or a tree branch or something. Cow, are you telling me my ducking sofa was walking around as a cow once? He tried explaining several times where leather comes from, but she point-blank refused to believe him. Story 33. I have a few from my days in retail when I worked at an IGA while I was in high school. Hey mate, these apples are $5 kg. It's being scanned as $10. The bloke had 2 kgs of apples. At the tender age of 15, I had to explain basic maths to a ducking 40-year-old. At Specsavers, hey, I'd like to return these glasses. They are broken. Okay, let's take a look at them and see what we can do. What's your surname? We don't sell this brand of frame. Where did you purchase these from? Oh, some Laub something or other. But I should be able to return them here. Unfortunately not. You will need to take these back to the optometrist you purchased them from and return them there. That doesn't seem right. I bought them here. No, you didn't. This is a Specsavers, not Laubman and Pank. We also don't carry this brand of frame. Take it back to LP and get them to process the refund for you. Can I speak to the manager? Sure, except he will tell you the same thing I did. Get the manager. I am the manager and you can't return these here. Story 34. About 10 years ago, I worked in a Walgreens photo lab. Had a dude very obviously pilled out of his mind walk up to the register at the photo lab and slap a stack of prescriptions on the desk. Stuff like muscle relaxers, opiate painkillers, the usual stuff. Went round and round with this guy for like 5 minutes straight, trying to explain that the pharmacy was only several dozen feet away. Dude seemed like he'd have been pretty aggressive, had he not been nodding off mid-sentence. He kept talking crap and calling me a dumbass with drool trailing from his lip. Just ducking fill my scripts, you dumbass. About a year later, I started working in the pharmacy itself at the same location. I had a pair of tweakers come in with a prescription that was literally just a scrap of notebook paper with about a half dozen different controlled substances written in prawn black ducking crayon prawn. The pharmacist who was on shift was a major troll too. She kept telling them, I tried filling it and the computer simply won't let me. Have you tried calling your doctor? Story 35. Not retail, a bar instead. But of all the stupid I've dealt with, this was my favorite, was serving a corporate manager and his staff. This guy thought he was a big deal, spending a lot of money, bragging and treating the bartender, me, like I was some insufferable peon. He finally pays, and I run his card, give him the bill, and a pen. He tries to use the pen, but nothing happens. He holds the pen out to me and says, Hey chief, you have any pens that actually work? I took the pen, clicked the end to expose the nib, and handed it back to him. I said, and there you go, chief. Let me know if you need help with anything else. His entire staff exploded in laughter. He glared at me, but what could he do? Never saw him again, but most of his staff became regulars. They would drink and about their crap boss and tell me at least once a week that he was about me again. Story 36. Mobile phone sales. Back in the analog days. I was writing up a customer when man entered my store. He was carrying a large Ziploc bag half filled with what looked like muddy water, and immersed in the muddy water was a Motorola flip phone. I thought, WTF is going on here? When I finally got to him, he asked if I could repair his phone. Sorry mate, your phone is drowned. How long has it been in the water? 3 days. But my friend said that if I leave it in the water, it can be repaired. Sorry, mate, your friend stitched you up. If you had immediately removed it, taken the battery off and dried it out, you might have saved it. It would have to be taken out of the water to repair anyway. But after being submerged for 3 days, it's well and truly gone. Sorry, poor guy was heartbroken, a mix of sadness, anger, and despair. I think he was ready to throttle his idiot friend. I'll never forget that sad image of a phone swimming in a bag of water. Story 37. Not retail, but general tech support. Turning the monitor on and off doesn't actually turn the whole PC on and off. The amount of times I've gotten a call about a computer not working and all that was wrong was that it wasn't turned on is staggering. I guess this would make more sense these days, but this was over a decade ago and desktop computers were everywhere. Story 38. Hi, welcome to Taco Bell customer. I want a large cheeseburger with extra cheese. Me. Sir, we don't not serve that here. Me in uniform that says Taco Bell as well as the whole restaurant having tacos on the menu. Customer. What kind of place is this? Are you telling me you do not serve burgers? Looks at me like I'm dumb. Me. We have tacos. Maybe I can help you find something on the menu. Customer. Looks at menu for a couple of minutes. I want a cheeseburger. Me. Sir, we don't serve that here. Customer. What kind of burger place doesn't serve burgers? Me. This is Taco Bell. Finally annoyed and confused because the whole place should have been a giveaway. Are you talking about Lotta Burger next to us? He proceeded to look around. Didn't say anything and walked to Lotta Burger next to us. Story 39. In the UK, VAT, sales tax, is automatically included in pricing. It's common for itemized receipts to have the total VAT from the items listed separately for business purposes. Very normal and pretty self-explanatory when you look over a receipt. I had a middle-aged customer call up shortly after leaving absolutely irate that we had overcharged them for something they didn't buy. This VAT. I had to explain this was just the tax breakdown. They had no idea what this meant, no idea that we pay tax on goods. The more I tried to explain, the more they thought we were running some kind of scam, as apparently no other retailers do this. In the end, they came back in and insisted I got a calculator and add up each individual item on the receipt and compare the price to the ticket to make sure the total was correct. Of course it was. Still insisted we were being misleading and dodgy somehow. Story 40. Working in a menswear shop. Petite woman comes in. W. Do you have clothes for short people? Me. We have a small selection of short-rise slacks, but most of our clothing is meant to be tailored. Pronguster to rack of suits, prawn. We can order any of these in the size you want. W. But I'm a woman. Me. I see that, but we don't sell clothes in women's sizes. We sell suits for men. W. I need clothes for work. Someone told me I could get office clothes here. Me. At this store or in this mall? We can tailor a suit to fit you, but it will be expensive. W. Prawn. Long silence. Prawn. Me. I think if you're looking for clothes in your size, you might have better luck at Ann Taylor. They're 3 doors down. W. Prawn wanders off and eventually goes into Victoria's Secret. Prawn. I have no idea where she worked, who told her what, or if she ever left the mall. She might still be wandering the food court looking for work clothes. Story 41. I used to work in a fish market and we were having a huge sale on Christmas. Everything was marked down and we were selling Maine lobster for something like $15 per pound when they were normal in the $20, $24 range. One guy came in and picked the biggest lobster we had in the tank, which was about 14 pounds, and was easily the biggest lobster we'd ever had in the store. When we ring him up for over $200, he has an absolute crap fit in the crowded store that the sign says lobsters are $15. We explain the math to him, but he isn't having it, and keeps screaming about false advertising and threatening to call the police, to which the owner kept telling him to go ahead. He kept ranting and raving for about 15 minutes and demanding his lobster until the police did show up and removed him. Story 42. I still talk about my old retail manager in glowing terms for his ability to calmly explain why 75% off items already marked down 50% did not mean the customer would be getting money back, because that's more than 100% off. The woman was so pleased with herself, thinking she had really outwitted the dumbasses selling punk rock in the mall, after my boss got her to stop talking and listen, even demonstrating for her with a pizza eraser we had at the register. She was not nearly as excited. Then, because he was a sport, he told her she could pick out any one thing on that clearance rack and she could have it for free. She left empty-handed. She wasn't into a slip-knot shirt or a Nightmare Before Christmas notebook. She was a mall walker that had time to read the sign, but not enough to think it through. Story 43. I got 2 from over 30 years ago. One at a grocery store. An 80-plus years old woman had like 6 items on the checkout counter and was adamant that I don't scan her groceries. She was going on about radiation. I tried to briefly explain lasers to her, but no go. Eventually, I just keyed them in and off she went. Later, I worked at a bank and these 2 women rolled up to the drive-up trying to cash a check made out to Rebecca, and that's it. No account info. And they were just going on and on about how that's her whole name and everyone in the branch knows her and stuff like that. Meanwhile, there is a line growing behind them. I gave up and got my manager. She asked them to come into the branch to work it out, and I think they just drove off. Pretty sure, looking back, that was a scam attempt. Story 44. The dumbest? Had a customer come into a Walgreens with a bunch of Walmart products and try to return them. Not only did I have to explain that, no, we don't accept Walmart's returns. These products were products we didn't sell, and even if we did, they were opened, clearly used, and missing parts. Like, she tried to return a pack of Pokemon cards, but the cards were missing. She wanted to return an empty foil wrapper for full price. But the dumbest, well, we had an employee who was a bit autistic. I don't know what her issue was. I respected her privacy and never asked. Anyways, she was a good employee. Everyone liked her. But this one guy came up and insisted I fire her because she's acting weird and probably on drugs. She might go crazy. You should get rid of her. I was a CSA, a cashier. Even if I didn't like her and wanted her gone, I have absolutely prawn power. Heck, if anything, she outranked me. Yeah, let me fire my own superior. Story 45. Not exactly retail, but sent to install AV stuff after purchase. A customer complained with furrowed brow. You guys lied to me. You said this system was wireless. It is. The main unit and sub is here, and the speakers are around the room, connected with Bluetooth. Then what's prawn smugly? The power cord? That's a wire? That's technology that doesn't exist yet. By wireless, it means you don't have to connect the speakers, but it still needs steady power. She was so close to sending us back and returning it, but we somehow got her to understand that every other brand would be exactly like that. That's not even mentioning the amount of times we were called out on a service call just to change the input for $65. And by change the input, I mean press the input button on the controller to switch between perfectly working inputs. Story 46. I worked in a bank, and a customer came in with her bank card asking to withdraw the $2.30 that was in her account. She tapped her card, and our system brought up her account. Her account was $2.30, pro-overdrawn. Prawn me. Oh, so it appears your account's actually $2.30 pro-overdrawn. Prawn her. Okay, yeah, I just want the $2.30 that's in there out. Me. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's in debit. So it's overdrawn, and it's actually a pro-negative prawn balance. Her. It says there's $2.30 in there on my ATM statement here, so I just want to get that out. Me. Oh no, it says prawn minus prawn $2.30, as in negative like. You don't have $2.30 sitting there to take. You actually prawn took prawn $2.30 too much out at some point. And so I cannot get any money out for you because it's not only not there, but you actually technically owe it to the bank. Her. Prawn. Still not understanding. Prawn. Listen, I just need the $2.30 out. I don't understand why you're making it so difficult. Story 47. 2002, I'm 16 in my first job working the balloon counter at Party City. A woman thought we charged too much for helium and said, I'll just do it at home. In my customer service voice, I said, oh, do you have one of our small party tanks? She looked me in the face and said, no, I'll just blow it up with my mouth and put a string on it. The string makes it float. I did a double blink thinking I must have heard her wrong. No. This grown woman thought that tying a string to a balloon would make it float. I had to explain chemistry to a grown woman, and I almost failed chemistry. My teacher gave me a sympathy D because he could see that I tried. Story 48. I had a gentleman who wanted to return a wireless router. He stated it never worked and wanted a replacement. Done. 2 days later, and he's back to return the second router. Again, he says it never worked, so I decided I'd help him troubleshoot it. As soon as I get the box open, I notice none of the cables have even been touched. I asked if he was using an existing power supply. This was the exchange. Him. No. Why would I? Me. Well, it has to have power. How did you hook it up? Him. I didn't. It's supposed to be wireless. Me. After a few minutes of explaining, he caught on and got really, really red in the face. He apologized profusely and went home with his router. Story 49. Usually when someone asks me where a staple product is, I make very clear eye contact with the big nearby aisle sign and say, sign says aisle hash, and they usually are like, thanks, and never even try to think about what just happened. I've had to show people using price scanners that they have to scan the barcode. You know, like when you're checking out. You can't just scan any random piece of the product and have it magically know what it is. Also, I work for Coca-Cola as a vendor these days. I used to work for a store, and people still come up to me in my bright red shirt with my bright red logo and my fully decked out uniform that couldn't be for anything else, and still ask if I work for the store. Yes, I know stores barely have employees, and you probably just want someone to help you. But damn it, just say that. Story 50, licensed pest tech here. Not technically retail, but I occasionally have customers who request we not use certain types of products or put pesticides in certain areas. For example, kill the droaches in my kitchen, but don't use bait or spray anything. When I explain that their request will reduce the effectiveness of the treatment, they almost always go, what do you mean? And lose their goddamn minds. For context, anything I use indoors is going to be pet and child safe when applied properly. Some people are paranoid. I'm going to try and fog their nursery with DET or something. I also work a second job at a restaurant. The most common stupid question I get is, why don't I get extra meat when I ask for no veggies? I literally had some dude order steak and potatoes, steak only, then throw an absolute fit claiming he thought he'd automatically get another steak to replace them. Story 51. Customer sales associate from an ATT retailer. Almost 10 plus times a day, we would get customers requesting Apple ID support regarding passwords, storage, and other account issues. We are an authorized retailer for these phones, but in no way can we go into Apple security things like actual Apple support. We would assist them and direct them to calling Apple customer support, but none of them were ever happy to do so. One particular customer forgot their password, and I proceeded to assist him with contacting Apple support. He argued with me and claimed that we were supposed to be able to do it for them, as well as being absolutely sure that the customer support representative for Apple was in the back room. So he ended up being escorted out by security after trying to force his way into the locked back room where we keep our phones. Some people. Story 52. Okay, so the company I work for has an app just like every other retail, Kaufland, Metro, etc. One day a lady, around 30, with the latest model iPhone asked me to help her set up the account. And by following the 5 simple AF steps, she stopped at the second step, which was, what's your name first and last? And she asked me, what do I enter here? Really? Story 53. I didn't really explain much, but in my retail days, I did have a customer ask how thick the toilet paper was that we sold. I looked at the package and noted it was 2-ply. And I told the customer that it was 2-ply. That wasn't good enough for the customer. He wanted to know exactly how thick in measurement it was. I glanced at the pack again, but did not see the dimensional thickness printed on the pack, just the width and length, and 2-ply. I informed him as such and said, "I'm sorry, this doesn't provide that information." He started going off, "Why don't you know that? Is there anyone here that would know this?" I was so baffled. I told him that I didn't think we kept that information on file and he'd probably need to call the manufacturer. He walked off in a huff. Story 54. Back in the days when CDs were fairly new, we had someone buy a CD player and then return it as malfunctioning. The guy in electronics took a look at it and explained to the customer that the disc was in upside down. The customer still insisted on a new CD player. A few days later, he was back with the new player, not working. Guess what? I don't know if he thought you were supposed to play both sides like an album or what. After another tutorial, he left, but was back again the next day with, "You guessed it, upside down CD." At that point, they just gave him his money back and sent him elsewhere. I wonder if he ever figured it out. Story 55. I want to buy this netbook. It's out of stock. Then you have to sell me the display. Ma'am, the display is an empty plastic shell with a sticker showing you what the screen would look like. See where someone tried to peel it off here? I've also had to explain to a customer that big popular movie that was just released the day before is not out on DVD yet and won't be for a while. And then there was the guy who was trying to return an original fat Nintendo DS. He swore up and down that he had bought it at our store a month before. I had to explain to him that this was impossible because the original DS was discontinued in 2009, 2 years before. But more importantly because we were still in our grand opening weekend. Story 56. Majority of off-brand items are made by the large brands. Same product, different label. This one time, a lady argued with me about the milk prices being too high, name brand. I told her I don't control the prices, but I can tell you the store brand is the same milk, same manufacturer. Same cows. Everything is the same except to throw a different label on it and charge less. She stuck to her knowledge and paid more for that better name brand milk. Can't fix stupid. Story 57. I was working at a Christmas shop when a lady came in to return her elf on the shelf because, and wait for it, it didn't move during the night. I laughed, but she was dead serious and didn't understand. I asked whether she thought it was a tiny robot and she said, "No, I know it's a toy, I just don't understand why it didn't move. All of my friends have one and theirs moves and it does silly and naughty things." I then had to explain that just like how her partner would play the role of Santa, spoiler alert, and buy presents and wrap them to create the magic of Santa, she would have to move the doll herself. She then returned the doll because she couldn't be bothered doing that. It's my favorite story to tell. Story 58. Back when Walmart ad matched, a woman tried to price match a coffee that was cheaper at Walmart, 5.98, to Walgreens, 6.99. I told her it would be more expensive, but she kept insisting she was ad matching. I said I understood what she was doing, but the price at our store was less than the price she was trying to ad match for. She said, "Do I need to get a manager? You're trying to keep me from ad matching and I have the ad right here." And she shoved the flyer at me. I was like, "Is this really happening?" And did it anyway, whatever. Story 59. I worked at a Radio Shack back in the day. I used to get a ton of crazy-ass customers. The one I think of often was a guy who brought in a receipt without the products and expected a refund. Customer, "I want my money back for this stuff." Me, "Okay, sir, do you have the items with you?" Customer, "No, I left them at home." Me, "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't give you the refund without receiving the items back." Customer, "So I have to go all the way back to my house." Me, "Unfortunately, yes." He got pissed, snatched the receipt, and stormed out of the store. Story 60. Worked at Subway. They wanted a sandwich, chips, and a drink. It was a $6 meal deal at the time. It was rang up as such. Lady came back and said she didn't order a meal, just chips, a drink, and a sandwich, and wanted refunded the difference. I kindly said that's what a meal is. She insisted she didn't want a meal, just the chips, a drink, and the sandwich. I tried to explain I could ring them up in separate transactions, but because those items make up a meal, the computer automatically gives them the meal deal, and it's actually cheaper than paying for each item separately. She submitted a complaint saying we ripped her off by charging for a meal when all she got was a sandwich, chips, and a drink. Story 61. Worked at a telecoms provider. Conversation went like this. Customer, "I need a refund from the excess broadband I have been charged for using." Me, "Of course, was this done without your permission?" Customer, "No, my son used it, so I will not pay for it." Me, "I suppose we could ask if he will pay it." Customer, "He is 7 years old." Then I explained that due to his age, she was liable, and there was no way the company would let her off with the quite substantial bill the son had to ejaculate or come seminulated. She talked to my manager, his manager, and the head of the site for about 3 hours. There were like 4 of us just listening to one call, her repeating the same thing over and over. Story 62. I ordered and was invoiced for a cookbook by Rachel Ray. Instead, I was sent this Dale book by her husband. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me look into this and I'll call you back right away. I had to email her back because I didn't think I could tell her in person without crying from laughter. My email read, "Hello, customer name. I don't know how to tell you this. Please flip over the book." The Dale book was a small ad onto the back of the Rachel Ray book. She had the grace to email me back, "Well, I guess I'm wearing the dunce cap today." She was a librarian. Story 63. So many. I managed the wine and spirits department in a California grocery store for 14 years. 1. Customer. My wife and I had a wine at dinner last night that was really good. It had a white label. Do you carry it? Me, gazing at a row of at least 300 wines with white labels too. Customer. I want a dry marsala. Me. Sure, here are my dry marsalas. Customer. Is it sweet? Me. No, dry means it's not sweet. Customer. I want the dry marsala that's sweet. 3. Customer walks in the wide open door at 6 a.m. There is a checker at the register, ringing up a customer, a bagger putting items in a bag, and employees bustling around. Customer, are you open? Story 64. I have heard a lot, but giving you one. Lady comes into Best Buy. This was at least 10 years ago looking for a router, one without Wi-Fi. Because she is allergic to the Wi-Fi, explained you can turn off the Wi-Fi of any of the routers. Oh no, that doesn't work. She can feel it. Long story short, she stood there for almost 30 minutes saying if she comes within 10 feet of a Wi-Fi, even for a second, she will pass out. Now, mind you, there are at least 4 Wi-Fi networks whipping around the store at any given time, and that cell phone she had against her head most of the time transmits a Wi-Fi searching signal at all times. Story 65. I'm selling tires. Dude slams an ad on the counter and says, "I want this tire at this price." I look at it, check our inventory. We don't sell that brand of tire. We have the same size, but the cost is less than the one in the ad. I tell the imbecile, "We don't sell that brand, but..." He interrupts me loudly. "I want this tire at this price." Everyone is now watching us. I try to explain, but he keeps saying the same thing. Finally, I yell back, "We don't have those tires. We don't sell those tires." "You are not getting those tires here." I walked off. Manager says, "You can't yell at customers." Story 66. I worked at a coffee shop inside of a big box store. The city was on a water boil notice, but they still had us open for some reason. IDK, it was dumb. But I just worked there. I had a conversation that went something like this. "Hi, can I get a latte?" "Hi, unfortunately, we're under a water boil notice, so I can't make any espresso drinks." "Can't you just boil the water?" "We actually don't have a way to do that, sorry." Okay, can I get a coffee then?" "We don't have any coffee due to the water boil notice, unfortunately." "You don't have anything?" Fine, can I just get a cup of water then?" Story 67. I worked at Borders for a minute back in 2010. I had a lady come in and tell me she wanted to read Pride and Prejudice because it was by the same person who wrote the movie. I think she also had read a sequel book or two by a modern author. She was not hearing me when I told her we did have the book, but Jane Austen was alive in the 1700s and had not written the movie. She was insistent I was wrong. I gave her the book, and I still sometimes wonder what she thought of it and if she ever came back to angrily return it. Story 68. Working returns at a large box store, Gnome Repo or something. Guy comes in to return a reversible screen door because it was a left-hand swing and he needed a right-hand swing. I came out from behind the counter, took it out of his hands, turned it around, and handed it back to him. Other customers were amused. Took a call one time from a lady looking for a tarp. She had seen on the website that we had 10x20 on tarps, but she needed one that was 20x10. I assured her that we had them, and then spent 10 minutes banging my head on the counter. There are many more. Story 69. Not retail, but used to work in a hotel, and God, the stories I have. A lot of people do not understand check-in time and check-out time. Remember one guest who tried to check in at 10 in the morning, had not requested an early check-in, and when I explained that the room wasn't ready yet, she got pissed. Got even more angry when I told her the room wasn't guaranteed till 3 o'clock, and that at the moment the guests from the night before were still in it. She was flabbergasted that we let someone sleep in her room the night before. Sigh. Story 70. In my early retail days, I had a customer throw a tantrum because he purchased an item that was 3 for $1, and the first item rang up on his receipt for 34 cents, while the other 2 items rang up for 33 cents. He was furious about that penny difference. I tried to explain that you couldn't evenly divide 1.00 into 3, and the penny had to come from somewhere. I tried to give him the penny back. He wasn't having any of it. Finally, he tuckered himself out or got frustrated and just left the whole thing on my counter and went home. True story. Story 71. 3 times 4 is 12. Ice cream that was usually $4.99 was on sale for 3 for $12. She bought one that rang up for $4. This was wrong, according to her. She didn't quite think we were overcharging her, nor could she articulate how she thought we were undercharging her, but she was completely inconsolable, groaning, "No, the whole shebang." This was a lucid adult woman in her 30s or 40s. Story 72. 1. You can't return a pair of super low-price clearance jeans that you got for Christmas and do an even exchange for a brand new, not clearance, not even on sale pair. 2. Just because we have employees in the store at 5 a.m. does not mean the store is open. We opened at 9 a.m. 3. that I'm not going to take down the sign advertising that khakis are on sale because the jeans on a completely different table are not. Oh, and that's not false advertising. 4. That the door clearly labeled emergency exit is not the door to the bathroom, hence the alarm going off. Story 73. Back when I worked retail, there was never an end of goofballs that came in with expired coupons and demanding we honor it. And we're not talking about 1 or 2 days late, which my stores normally did honor, but we're talking about months after the fact. One incident had a customer that brought me a 6-month-old coupon for a purchase. Kohl's. Watching people turn into raging babies at checkout is one of the many reasons why I grew the duck up and got out of cashiering and into more physically demanding labor jobs. Story 74. You can't return this doorknob here. You bought it at Lowe's. This is Home Depot. But I have the receipt. Yes, but it's a Lowe's receipt. This is Home Depot. Can I talk to a manager? Sure, give me a second. Make sure it's a Lowe's manager. What? I want to talk to a Lowe's manager. I'll see what I can do. Story 75. I overheard a customer calling a taxi to pick him up from the store I worked at, except he gave the wrong store. So naturally, I corrected him. First dumb thing he did was ask if I'm sure. When I said I was sure, he went to say the really dumb thing and told me that it didn't matter. There wasn't really a difference. So I had to explain to him that there was a difference because the taxi would be going to the opposite side of the city. Story 76. I've posted this story before. Back when I owned a video store, we had a sign on the desk that something like, "Got a question? Ask any staff genius." One day, these 2 drunk dudes stumbled in and one of them saw the sign and loudly said, "Hey, genius, where's your 45S?" and started laughing. A bit confused, I asked, "Do you mean 45 revolutions per minute records?" To which he replied, "Yeah, genius." I waved my hand vaguely around and said, "You're in a video store. And who's the genius now, prawn?" Story 77. The self-checkout is not trying to charge you for some exotic produce. The word quantity means how many you have. It's just asking how many limes you have, so you can press one and then enter. She seemed like a standard issue adult, but I got a 404 blank stare when trying to explain what quantity was. When the gears finally creaked to life behind her dull eyes, she went on a tirade about the company, making it internationally confusing to steal her money. That was almost 20 years ago, and I still think about it from time to time. Story 78. I have to explain more than I should that people cannot purchase something and charge it to someone else's CR, card, or in-house charge account. That is fraud. Also, we rent out expensive equipment and have first-time renters fill out a rental contract with us. People are always asking, do you really need to know where I work? And why do you require a photo ID? Maybe because we're renting you over $1,000 of equipment and we'd like to know that A, you can pay for it, and B, how to find you if you run off with it. Story 79. I once had a woman with a stack of coupons for 20% off a purchase of $50 or more. She insisted that I break her $250 order into multiple parts so she could use multiple coupons. I could not get her to understand that 20% off of $250 is the same as 20% off of $50 plus 20% off of $50 plus. I don't know why that transaction is the one that sticks out, but that is the exact moment I realized what a failure our educational system is. Story 80. I had a woman scream at me because we didn't carry counterfeit merchandise. She was mad that the licensed NFL jerseys were so expensive and kept insisting we should just be able to sell her a knockoff. No amount of, "That's illegal, ma'am," was sinking in, so finally my boss told her to go find some fly-by-night kiosk at the mall because we couldn't help her. Story 81. Working at a building supply store. Every person would do this when buying doors because they didn't know if it was a right handle or left, swing in or out. They would listen to an explanation, then have to act out how to open by a pretend handle. If they wanted a door to swing the other way, they would walk to the other side of the pretend door and then say that way. Story 82. I worked at a call center and a lady just could not understand how phone lines worked. Her call disconnected for some reason, and she thought I hung up on her because phone lines never disconnect calls. Like, "Ma'am, I don't care enough to get in trouble for hanging up on you." Took like 12 minutes for her to tell me what she ducking wanted because she just wouldn't let it go. She insisted that I disconnected the call. She just wanted her balance on the account. Enjoy your $2.48, Brenda. Story 83. I owned a retail flooring company all my life. I've got plenty of stories. One of my faves. There were remnants of different size carpets leaning against the outer walls. One was tagged a 9x12. The lady that was shopping asked, "Will a 9x12 do a 12x9 room?" My reply, "You would have to roll it up different and bring it in through the back door." She just said, "Uh-huh." Story 84. Worked in a deli at a grocery store. My favorite was when a woman asked how much a pound of X brand of cheese cost. It was $3.99 per pound. She said, "So, like $4 for a pound?" I agreed. With a straight face, she asked, "Okay, well, how much would a half pound be?" I blinked a couple times, waiting for her brain to kick in, but she needed me to do the math for her. Felt like I was teaching kindergarten. Half of 4 is? Story 85, from running a seafood department. Those raw shrimp, do they need to be cooked? 200B. countless times working in electronics. If it has a rechargeable battery, I've had this discussion over it, from digital cameras to pagers to cell phones to wireless keyboards, mice. It stopped working. Me, the battery is dead. You need to charge it, or you need to replace the batteries. No one told me I'd have to charge this, or no one told me I had to change the batteries. Story 86. I worked at a chain office supply store years ago. This was obviously a customer trying to scam the store, but we were running a BOGO free on printer ink. She came up to the counter with one box of printer ink and argued with me that BOGO free means she buys one box and then gets it refunded immediately and gets to leave with it. Had to get the manager involved because she wouldn't leave. Story 87. That just because you bought a membership to this store doesn't mean we have to cater to just you. Rules still apply, proper attire still applies, and that you will have to clean up your dog's mess. Not me. Not to mention that we at any time reserve the right to cancel your membership if you acted against policy or threatened. And I quote, to wreck you so bad you'd be lucky to be alive. Story 88. Where's the menu? That giant board behind me with all the words and prices on it that fills the entire wall. That's the menu. It's there. It lists what he have. Oh, also, the locked doors, lights off, and all the chairs on the tables does, in fact, mean we are closed. My presence inside with a mop at 11 p.m. is not a signal to repeatedly pull on the locked door and then start banging on it, yelling, "Are you open?" Story 89. Auto parts retail. Prawn, if you don't know what the vehicle is you're working on, I cannot help you. It's a red Ford is almost entirely useless, Prawn, if you are unable to tell me what the part is. Or at least what it does. I cannot help you. Big hunk of iron in the wheel well is useless. Prawn. Yes, I know we're talking about the front brakes. However, Dodge used a different front brake setup, depending on whether the rears were drum or disc. Story 90. I was behind this woman in line. The airport's lost baggage counter is not the place where your lost baggage is waiting for you when you get off the plane. It's where you go to put a flag in the computer that, when your bag turns up, they know what to do with it. Took 15 minutes to explain that they weren't going to just bring out her lost suitcase. Story 91. I used to teach at Apple stores. One customer comes to mind. She was a retired nun in her early 80s, and I had to explain what the internet, not because she didn't know, but because she thought it was a natural force created by God, like gravity, and humans only built computers to harness the internet like we did with electricity. Sweet old lady. And she took me destroying her concept of what the internet was really well. Story 92. That the broadband bill you're shouting at me about isn't my problem, because this is a computer games shop and the broadband shop is next door. However, having to explain to my computer games shop manager that I didn't sell that old couple a 40 pounds game that wouldn't work on their son's PC because they'd just return it, so selling them a 20 pounds game and getting repeat custom is a better solution, was ultimately more annoying. Story 93. I worked as a mechanic for a while. Tons of people have no clue what car they're driving and don't bother to check before coming in to get it worked on. When asked, they just say something like, "the white one," or "show me the key." I'd have to walk outside with them, have them point it out in the lot, and then explain what they drive. Story 94. Him, "this voucher code is not working." Me, "it's not one of our codes." Him, "well, why isn't it working?" Me, "it's not our code, it's for a different company." Him, "no, it's not, it's yours." Me, "it's not ours, it's other company name." Him, "this is ridiculous. You should honor it anyway, as I've spent a lot of time calling you." Me, "no." Him, "you understand my point though, right?" Me, "no." Story 95. Cashier. Customer argued with me about the price. Walked back to the shelf with her. Pointed out the price. Huffy, she insisted. Insert store's name. Customers shouldn't be expected to read, "Okay, I'm gonna go over here and sit in a corner quietly while I try to do whatever mental gymnastics you just did to come up with that answer." Story 96. Worked in a Mexican restaurant and put chips and salsa on the table. Customer asked what the things in the basket are. I said they are chips, and she asked what that is. Told the customer how they are made, and she still did not understand what they are. I finally asked if she knew what Doritos are. She said she did, and I told her the chips were Doritos. Story 97. I'm sorry we can't fill that prescription for you at a full year supply, because there aren't enough fills on the RX for that, and your insurance won't pay for more than 90 days at a time. Okay, sure, the cash price for full year at twice daily dosing, just so you can know, is $18,654.50. So you'd rather just do 90-day fills under your insurance at $4.12? Sounds goo. Story 98. Customer bought a monitor recently. At home, he tried to remove the plastic protection film, but it didn't come off very smoothly. He proceeded to use some kind tool to try and get it removed. After removing about 5 to 10 centimeters, he figured out he was chiseling the LCD instead of removing the protective film. He went full Karen on me when I told him we weren't going to compensate him for his lack of common sense. Story 99. I wasn't a retail worker, but the amount of times I had to explain to people that zoom and enhance was only on TV and movies was staggering. They'd have a picture and want me to zoom and enhance the pixel far off in the distance because they wanted to see the face of their mom and couldn't understand why I couldn't do it. Story 100. Girl comes in with jeans that didn't fit and has the receipt. Hey, you got this at the Levi's store. I can't return it here. Oh, but you all sell these Levi's jeans. I can't just return them here. Nope, we're a Macy's, and your receipt is from the Levi's store. Oh, I didn't know you couldn't do that. More than once. More than you would think. Story 101. Me on a call where people order random crap that takes 4 weeks to arrive. So that's the random piece of crap with free mop. Could be a mop. I can't remember. Customer. But I don't want the mop. Me. But it's free. I can't take it off the order. Customer. Okay then, how much is it? Me. It's free. Customer. Fine. Story 102. My favorite story I remember was working at a grocery store and customer asked where we have the romaine noodles. I repeated and said we have romaine lettuce. No, they wanted the noodles. After a bit of back and forth and an aha moment for me realizing I'm talking to a moron, they wanted ramen noodles.